What is going on, everybody? This is the Total Takedown, where we go over the UFC fight card from a totals perspective. We're looking overs and unders, trying to find a different angle for you to put some cash in your pocket for UFC 272. My name is Clint. I am the host of the Die Hard MMA podcast, brought to you by Pub Sports Radio and powered by the Superbook, baby. We are using Superbook lines for all of our shows going forward from now on. Thank you so much for the opportunity and the partnership. I can't wait to see what we can do together. So let's dive straight on into this bad boy. UFC 272, first fight of the night is Dustin Jacoby taking on Michel Lord Oleksiejczuk. We got a total set at 2.5. The over 2.5 here is plus 100 even money. The under 2.5 is about minus 120. So in this fight, I think everything really depends on Dustin Jacoby's game plan. We know Michel Lord Oleksiejczuk likes to come forward. He's a boxing heavy attack. He tries to crowd his opponents, stays right in their face, and that has cost him a couple of times. Dustin Jacoby is a slick kickboxer. If he decides he wants to use that teep kip it, if he wants to keep that range, attack the legs, then this could be a 15-minute kickboxing fight, and it probably sails right over that over 2.5 with these guys just kind of duking it out. However, if Dustin Jacoby decides he does not want to play the back foot, he wants to go forward, or even better yet, if he wants to grapple, then we have a problem, because Oleksiejczuk is going to cause a car crash under those circumstances, and this thing flies under because somebody is going to get clipped and put down. I'm kind of leaning towards violence for this first fight of the night myself. I think I favor both guys being able to finish. Both guys have been finished before, and you never know. Sometimes Dustin Jacoby and actually Oleksiejczuk, we've seen gas dumps from both guys, and if either one of them gets tired, the other will not let them off the hook. I say the under 2.5 at minus 120 is probably the way to go. Next fight up, Klein taking on Devontae Smith. The total for this one is set at 1.5. The over minus 135. The under is plus 115. And this is a spot where I absolutely can make an argument for violence. Klein has that highlight reel head kick KO. He can attack the body and the legs. Powerful, tanky style kicks. Devontae Smith, he is lightning fast and has precision punching. He puts people out easy. We have also seen him on the receiving end of those kinds of shots. The problem that I have with the under is that Klein has started incorporating grappling into his game plan. He likes to wrestle these days, slow the pace down, exhaust his opponents, wear them out, and he has shown himself to be extremely durable. When he's tired, when he's beaten up, he can get tapped out, but we don't really see this guy get rocked or knocked out very easily. I think he can weather the early storm from Devontae Smith, and if that's the case, unless Devontae Smith goes down in the first round himself, this thing's probably getting over. So I like that over 1.5 at minus 135. Tim Elliott next up, taking on Tagir Ulanbekov. Total set at 2.5 for this one. Over 2.5, minus 170. The under 2.5 is plus 150. And that over 2.5 is screaming at me for this spot, folks. Simply because Tim Elliott is nearly impossible to finish. Yes, you can submit this guy, but only the upper echelon of the UFC has been able to actually pull that off. He's too scrambly. He's too slick. He's too escapable. His opponent, Tagir Ulanbekov, he's one of these Russian monsters. Now, he is maybe the lesser of the Russian monsters, but he knows how to wrestle. He knows how to defend submissions. I have a hard time believing that Tim Elliott just gets on top of and completely dominates Tagir Ulanbekov on the mat. On the feet, I think this will be very competitive. I think Tim Elliott has a chance of outstriking Tagir Ulanbekov on the feet, but I do think it will be close. I do think it will be competitive, and with neither guy having that really one-hitter-quitter type of power, this thing probably goes all 15 no matter who gets it done. I like the over 2.5 at minus 170, eating a little chalk there. Next up, we've got Umar Nurmagomedov taking on Brian Boom Kelleher. Total set at 2.5. The over is minus 125. The under is plus 105. And this is yet another opportunity where we kind of have a tough decision on our hands. Umar is undefeated. We don't know what it looks like when this guy loses. He is a finisher. He has a lot of submissions on his record. He also is another Russian grinder where he can take people down and just maul them on the floor. So if Brian Kelleher minds his P's and Q's, if he is very defensively sound and solid in this fight, he could end up on his back for 15 minutes and we could see a very easy coasting losing decision for our Russian grappler. However, if Brian Kelleher decides to come out and strike with Umar Nurmagomedov, then one of these guys is probably going to eat a big shot. Brian has good boxing. Brian has solid power. Umar has good kicks, decent power himself. And then, of course, when they get into scrambles, the one way Brian Kelleher has really been kind of exposed in his professional MMA career has been the submission grappling. He has several losses by submission, and I think Umar's backpack is going to be a serious problem for him. Let's not forget the finishing upside of Brian Kelleher, though, because that sick squeeze that he has got when he jumps the ghillie is something we should not look past. If Umar comes in, leaves his neck a little too extended on a takedown, he could be tapping and have a quick night at the office himself. So I kind of like violence in this spot. Even though we've never seen Umar taken out or finished, I do think the step up in competition is the spot where something like that may happen. I think the submission upside for both fighters is absolutely there. We know Brian can finish with his hands as well. Same thing with Umar. This one should be a fun fight. I don't see them playing it safely. I think someone's going to end up going down. Let's say violence, under 2.5, plus 105. Myra Moroz taking on Maria Agapova, a fight with some serious bad intentions coming in here for this one. Women's MMA, total set at 2.5. Usually we see minus 200, minus 350, somewhere in that ballpark for these overs because they just hit the scorecards so often. We got an over 2.5 at minus 180 here. This is a spot where I kind of see that as value. Maria Agapova has been a finisher over the course of her career so far. However, she's fought a very low level of competition. Moroz is a big step up for her. It's a former training partner. Again, there's going to be some bad blood on this one, so there's always the chance that that plays into this, and it turns into a much more violent affair because the emotions are involved in it. But Moroz has really been working on her grappling. She's also a much slicker point striker on the feet. So even though Agapova does have big power in her hands, I don't know that she's going to land cleanly enough on someone like Moroz to be able to end the fight. If this thing does hit the ground, Agapova absolutely has the opportunity to submit Myra Moroz, but Myra Moroz is more than likely going to be in control wrestling style positions, and I don't know that we're going to get that women's MMA armbar from guard. I think we're going over, folks. I'm going to say over 2.5 at minus 180. Not extremely confident because of the upside and the violence and the emotion, but I'll say over. Nick Negumereanu taking on Kennedy Nzechukwu coming up next. Total set at 1.5 for this one. Over 1.5 is minus 160. The under 1.5 plus 140. I do think the over 1.5 plays here, and that's mostly because of Nick Negumereanu. This man is impossible to finish. He is durable as hell, and all he does is come forward and look to bang. He is not the most technical man in the world, but he seems to have an iron chin. Kennedy on the other side, I have questions about. He's only got 2 professional losses, but his last one was a bad knockout loss, and he is making a very quick turnaround here. I think really the only way that Kennedy has a chance of winning this fight is going to be by picking his opponent apart at range and mixing in the takedowns, the level changes. I think Kennedy has every tool in the bag better than Nick Negumereanu, except for the raw power and except for the durability. Now, I crowned Kennedy as a champion of durability the way he beat Carlos Ulberg. Now we're starting to question just how hard does Ulberg actually hit. We're not entirely sure. Kennedy may be mid-tier, and with that short turnaround, you never know if his body is completely healed. So this one could crash and burn in round 1 with Negumereanu getting a big shot in. But I'm going to lean with Kennedy being able to point his way deeper into the fight and say over 1.5 at minus 160. Marina Rodriguez taking on Yan Xiaonan, another women's MMA spot with a total of 2.5, and this one is easy. It'll save us some time. Let's go over 2.5, minus 250. Not a spot that I plan on betting myself. You got to make it a parlay piece or something like that, but Marina Rodriguez, even though she's kind of a powerhouse on the feet, Yan has been extremely durable throughout her career. Yan working with Team Alpha Male, where we've seen Marina Rodriguez struggle has been the takedowns, and if Yan decides to go for the wrestling, then she probably grinds out a 15-minute win with Rodriguez not being able to get back up to her feet. I'm not sure I see a finish from either woman in this fight. It should be a fun one. Let's go over. Jalen Turner taking on Jamie Malarkey, total set at 1.5. Over 1.5 is minus 145. The under 1.5 is plus 125. And I could see arguments for both spots on this one. Jalen Turner is a violent fighter. He's huge for the weight class. He's got a long reach, BJJ black belt, slick submission game upside. Jamie Malarkey is a kickboxer turned wrestler. This man mixed in the wrestling in his game, and he's been very dangerous ever since because he drags you into the deep waters, wears you out, and then starts to beat up on you and puts that power to work late once he's the fresher man in the cage. Now, I don't know if that's going to work on Jalen Turner. You don't really want to get in and start grappling with a man that's as slick on the mat as Jalen Turner is. And then on the feet, I think Jamie Malarkey's going to be at a significant disadvantage in the reach, which may turn this into less of a stand and bang and more of a point fighting affair. That could inch us over that 1.5. Both these guys have the ability to shut the lights out at any moment. So if you want to bet the under, I totally understand. I'm going to say over. This is one I'm not going to be betting, steering clear away from the total on this particular fight. Heavyweight time. Sergey Spivak taking on Greg Hardy. Total set at 1.5 once again. The over 1.5 is -145. The under 1.5 is +125. And I kind of lean violence here. This is a spot where just the gambling hairs on the back of my neck are telling me that Greg Hardy's going to do something big in this fight. And what that means is he's going to need to get a finish and probably do it early. If he doesn't, he's going to end up on his back. And if he ends up on his back, we've seen what happens before. He simply does not get up. Sergey Spivak has some sick ground and pound, some good submission offense from top position. I think Greg Hardy is relatively helpless when he's on his back, but when they're on the feet, Greg Hardy is a mountain of a man. He has big power in his hands, and his striking has come a long way. I think he can knock out Sergey Spivak on the feet if this thing stays standing, especially in round one where he is at his freshest. He had Tai Tuivasa on skates in his last fight. So both these guys absolutely can finish, and this is a low level enough heavyweight fight where you could see either one of them making a mistake and getting finished themselves. So I like under 1.5 at that +125. Kevin Holland taking on Alex Oliveira. Total set at 1.5. Again, the over -155. The under is +135. And this fight is one that I really can't wrap my head around very well. Kevin Holland, he's been working on his wrestling. He's been working on his grappling. Now he's finally making his way to 170. He should be an absolute monster in this weight class. He's going to have a huge size and reach advantage. Alex Oliveira, he's a journeyman fighter. Very well-rounded, good striking, solid power, decent wrestling. Gasses out from time to time. We see him kind of quit after he gets tired. We've seen it more than once. Sometimes he shows up 1,000% and is in every fight. Sometimes he doesn't. You just never know until you get in there. The question with Kevin Holland is, how does he approach this fight? If he wants to show off his wrestling, maybe we see a ground game. And he's also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and we've seen him finish a lot of people by submission. We've seen Alex Oliveira tap out several times. So there is that submission upside. Alex Oliveira has knocked some people out. He's also finished some people. I don't know that I see him finishing Kevin Holland, though. Holland is a very difficult fighter to finish, and facing a much smaller man, not a man who's a one-hitter quitter type of threat. I don't know that Alex Oliveira will be able to finish Kevin Holland, if I'm being completely honest. So the durability of Holland kind of takes away from the under, but at the same time, we saw what he did to someone like Jacare, a professional, high-level athlete, a legend of the sport, who took him down. He shucked him off, hit him with 1 or 2 big bombs, and that was it. Lights out. I can see something like that happening here against Alex Oliveira. So even though my criteria for the under hitting isn't really there in this spot, I kind of like violence. I'll say under 1.5 at +135. Edson Barboza taking on Bryce Mitchell. Maybe the fight a lot of us are most excited for, to see what exactly Bryce is made of. Total set at 2.5. Over is -105. The under is -115. Striker versus grappler, folks. We know Thug Nasty is all about getting on top of you and flowing with his wrestling, looking for those submission attacks. Edson Barboza, a guy that's very difficult to take down, a guy that's very difficult to keep down, but is getting kind of long in the tooth up there. Lots of experience. So slick on the feet, though. If this thing takes place at kickboxing or Muay Thai range, Bryce Mitchell is in trouble, because Edson Barboza packs an absolute punch and has been in there with the best in the world. So whoever gets this fight in their realm probably wins, and relatively easily, if I do say so myself. The question is the toughness, because if Bryce Mitchell manages to out-grapple Edson Barboza for 15 minutes, we've seen Edson survive in some of these grappling situations before. We've seen him not tap. We've seen him not get knocked out and not give up. That could go over for 15 minutes. Bryce Mitchell is a guy who forces people on the back foot. He makes things dirty and gritty. We haven't seen him lose yet, but we've seen a couple of close fights where he was kind of out of his element on the feet, getting beat up a little bit, and then had to mix the takedown in. So were he to lose, I don't necessarily know that it's by spinning heel kick KO. It's probably by Edson Barboza defending those takedowns, getting back to the feet, and scoring when he is on the feet. I also don't know how easy it truly is to finish a guy like Bryce Mitchell. So as scary as this sounds, I'm going to lean to the over 2.5 at a minus 105 price tag. Again, not a spot that I'm necessarily super inclined to bet, but I do think we see a level up from Bryce Mitchell, and I think Edson Barboza can do enough to at least stay in this fight. So I think we're going to see a fight that goes all 15 minutes, and it might actually end up being a banger. Co-main event here, Rafael Dossano is taking on Renato Moicano. We have a total set at 4.5. Over 4.5 is plus 100 even money. The under 4.5 is minus 120. Let's talk violence, folks. Give it to me. Renato Moicano is a guy who has got serious... He's my favorite glass cannon. He has long reach, sharp hands, hard punches, BJJ black belt, decent wrestling. He's big for the weight class. Like, he has everything you're looking for in a finisher. The problem is he packs up his lunch pail and goes home every once in a while. He has chin questions, big time durability questions. We've seen him flatlined several times, and he's got gas tank issues. He goes for that kill, and when he gets tired, he just folds. He's not the same guy when he gets tired. Rafael Dossano's 30 and 13, former champion. This guy puts a pace on people. He went up to 170, and it was only the top 3 contenders at 170 that were able to beat him, and none of them were able to finish him. This man is durable as all get out. This is a 160-pound catch weight, so that extra 5 pounds is going to lend to him not being broken in this spot. But if anybody is going to finish him, it's going to be a guy like Renato Moicano, who's coming in on short notice heavy, who's coming in for the kill in round 1 because he knows he doesn't have 25 minutes worth of gas. He thinks he can get it done in the first round or 2, and if he doesn't, he's not going to have a parachute. He's not going to have a return option. So I think this fight is going to start early. And whether Moicano gets it done in the first round, or whether Rafael Dossano takes over, puts a pace on him, breaks him, and then TKOs him in the third, I think it's going under 4.5, and minus 120 is a very fair price tag for that playing out. Main event time. Colby Covington taking on Jorge Masvidal. Total set at 4.5 once again, 5-round. Not title fight, but main event. Maybe title fight if Dana puts the BMF belt on the line. The over 4.5 minus 150, the under 4.5 plus 130. And I would love to say the under 4.5 is the value side here. And I might say the under 4.5 is the value side here. Colby Covington's a decision machine. He's kind of a smaller 170 pounder. He likes to volume up his opponents, work them, stay on top of them, use his wrestling grind. And Masvidal is the type of fighter. He's a 155er. It's late in his career. He's moonlighting up at 170. Never really belonged there, but because he's a bigger 155er and Colby's a smaller 170 pounder, they size up pretty well in this spot. Now, Colby, again, just that decision mentality. We can never really trust him to get a finish, but this is a spot where if he was ever going to get a finish, it's a former teammate. It's a bad blood situation. It's a guy he truly wants to physically hurt in there, and it's a man who he thinks he has a mental edge on because all those practice training rounds, he knows the outcome of those. He knows he can break this man with the wrestling. Masvidal, relatively durable fighter, a hard enough guy to finish, but he's getting older. He's coming off that knockout loss to Kamaru Usman not too long ago. And again, he just is, it's the age factor. Eventually the durability cracks. Eventually it becomes a problem. And we can always count on the officials to step in sometimes. If Colby's able to get the wrestling going, if he's able to get the takedowns going, there's no guarantee, there's no ground and pound here that eventually stops this fight. Even if Masvidal isn't out or unconscious, he could get pounded to the point that the ref needs to step in. And then, of course, Masvidal's knees are something we have to talk about. He can finish just about anybody early in a fight. So round 1, round 2, Masvidal is explosive, hits hard, big power in his hands and in those knees. So he can always hurt somebody and put them down. I don't think he knocks out Colby Covington. We've seen Colby take some big power punches and survive and walk through them. This is one of those ones where I think the value is on the under, and then I'm going to look stupid because it flies over because Colby does what Colby does. So I'm going to say I like that plus 130 on the under. Both fighters can absolutely cash that for us, but more than likely, this thing probably sails over that 4.5. Just a warning for you there. That's the total takedown, everybody. Thank you very much for sticking with me. Good luck on all your degenerate action. We'll see you tomorrow for the undefeated post weigh-in show right here on Pub Sports Radio. Thanks a lot. Let's roll.